Good afternoon. I'm Becky Milam. I'm responsible for orientation. I think everybody knows that. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Don King, who teaches speech here. And he told me that the longer my introduction was, meant the more trouble the speaker was going to be. So that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Becky. I want you to go with me in your mental time machine back into the mid-1970s. You can see that you're in a college cafeteria. You can hear the clink of silverware on the other side of the fake wall that is in the meeting room. Smell the baked chicken. Feel the white tablecloths on the table. And if you listen closely, you can probably hear my knees knocking because I'm in my very first speech contest ever. And I'm seeing this same scene. I'm experiencing what most people experience when they face an audience. I could hear my voice quaver. I'm not sure if they could, but I sure could. Now folks, I won that very first speech contest. And you know why? Because in that category, nobody else entered. But it was after my first speech class, and because I was in a real-world speech situation, it got me to thinking about what's actually involved in standing up in front of an audience. We all face these same things, you see. And it made me wonder even back then, why is it that we want to do this face-to-face thing? Why do we want to get together? I told you that was the mid-70s. A lot of things have changed since then, haven't they? The internet's come along, cell phones, all that sort of thing. Easy electronic communication is so easy. Getting information is so cheap. Why do we still get together like this? Have you asked yourself, why is it that the school is paying me to talk to people? Let's think about that just a little bit. In fact, turn to your neighbor. Well, go find one. Talk to your neighbor and think about why is it that people still in this day and age, have you paid to go to hear somebody talk? Have you been in that kind of a situation? Talk about that for a little bit. Give you about a minute. Go. Okay. Tell me what you came up with. Why do people get together for meetings, to hear speakers, when they can do it electronically? What do you think? Money for funding, okay.
You can't hear like the context of the words they're saying. You don't know if they're being sarcastic or they're being funny or serious.
Okay, especially compared to just getting a printed handout, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And of course we've got things like YouTube and things like that now where we can still see that. What do you think?
Everybody learns different ways, and some people learn better by hearing versus reading.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And those of us who've been students, those of us who teach, we know that. Okay, but you know, there's this thing of I'll mention YouTube again. You know, and yet people still want. The thing that amazes me about TED Talks, if you guys know about TED Talks. Okay, those of you who don't know, just go to TED.com, take a look sometime. They charge something like $3,000 for a ticket. You can get it online for free, and yet people still pay that kind of money to go to it. Why? I saw some other hands. Did we just kill that?
Well, I was just thinking body language is something that I can't get any other way. And a true reaction, I'm not going to get in an email or anything else. I don't know what your reaction is unless I
Okay, yes, the body language, and it's different live than it is even on video, right? Yes, ma'am.
There's a different camaraderie when you're with a group of people and you hear the speaker right there in front of you. Because when you're watching it online, it's just you in front of a computer. But you know, if there's something funny, you can look to your neighbor and say, "Oh yeah, that was."
Okay, yeah, that whole thing of camaraderie. I like that word for that. In fact, let me come back to that in just a second. Get this in the back. One more here.
This kind of goes along with what everybody else is saying, but it's FaceTime. I'm a member of the Fee Board, and we meet electronically, and as helpful as it is to be able to meet that way. And I also watch TED Talks, and this year, by the way, I wanted to go, but it's $6,000 this year to attend. Yeah, and that wasn't happening.
And they still get a full house.
Yeah, they do. And as much as I enjoy the majority of the programming that TED does put online, there is kind of a feeling of I wish I was sitting in that auditorium. And there is something different about the interaction between live human beings and live human beings through an electronic medium. It is different. You do see them better, you do hear them better, you do feel like you're part of the experience as opposed to being an observer of the experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Part of the experience. Have any of you you've gone to a movie and you're one of 3 people in the house? How different is that when you go to the movie and there's a whole bunch of people in there with you? It's funnier, it's more frightening, depending on the nature of the movie. Okay, it's different. Most of us face the prospect of facing an audience with dread. But there's a reason we get together like this. And if you recognize that as a speaker, you can take advantage of it as you're up front. We want to try to change the way you think. In fact, that word dread, we want to get it out of your vocabulary. There's an old dead Greek guy named Epictetus, who, among other things, he said, he was a stoic, but he talked a lot. But it's not what happens to you, but your thoughts about what happens to you that disturbs you. That's a paraphrase, because I don't speak Greek. But something like that, the way you think about what happens to you is what determines your experience. Several of you in this auditorium, you have a job to speak. You're going to be speaking to groups of people. In fact, you have new students coming in. First one is tomorrow, right? Okay? And there's going to be a lot of new people on this campus. Our job is to make their experience better. They are facing this life-changing event that going to Pellissippi State is. Remember your first day showing up at college? I can remember mine. Yeah, it was a long time ago. But like a lot of you and like a lot of the folks coming into our campus in the next few days, next few weeks, I was a first-generation college student. I had no idea what I was going to be facing. They're nervous also. If we can learn to harness our, what we call nervousness, in their service, then we can make a real difference in somebody's life. We're going to show you some detail about managing your experience. But I want you to remember that every one of those details is tied to making your experience better, because when you're having a good time, they're more likely to have a good time. And remember what we're talking about. Let's do another illustration here, as a matter of fact. I want you to stand up. Let me get through the instructions first, though. Stand up and greet the people around you, but I want you to greet them as if it's a formality. You'd really rather be home in bed. You're over this, but you're supposed to greet people. So just, greet them like that, okay? Go ahead and stand up and do this. Okay. Y'all have this down. Now, keep standing, but what I want you to do now is greet people as if it is your best friend from high school that you haven't seen in 20 years. So glad to see you. Okay. Okay, you can go ahead and sit down before you get too friendly. Yeah. Which one felt better? Yeah. You don't really know these people like that, do you? Weren't you able to change your experience by changing the way you were thinking about the experience? You can do that up here too. Let's think about some of the experience we've already had. Have some of you gone bungee jumping? Anybody in here? Okay, got some bungee jumpers here. Okay, have any of you ridden bumper cars? Okay, a lot more of those. How about riding a roller coaster? Yeah, roller coaster. Okay, yeah, love it, love it. Seen a scary movie? Okay, you pay money to go to scary movies or rent them? Seen other scary movies? Okay. How many of you remember going off the high diving board for the first time? Oh yeah, yeah. I remember that one. I was probably about 10 years old. Do they still have high diving boards at public pools? A lot of times they take them out because they're worried about getting sued, okay? But they still had one at my pool. And I climbed up there because it didn't look that high. Somehow they raised the ladder while I was climbing it. And I did worse than this guy. I laid down on the board and wrapped my arms and legs around it and started screaming. I'd probably still be there, except some big 12th grader peeled me off and threw me in so he could use the board. Now folks, if you did what I did, what was the very next thing that you did?
Cry.
Cry? Okay. I didn't do that. Okay.
Break it down.
Okay, because you're already down. You're in the water. Say it again, Marilyn. Go right back up there, right? Didn't you do it again?
Yeah.
After the first time? You did it on purpose that time, huh? Okay, we've got this thing, this chemical in our bodies called adrenaline. And some of you might even describe yourselves as adrenaline junkies. Anybody like that? Okay, I'm seeing some hands like. If you're really an adrenaline junkie, you're going to, yes! Okay? We pay money to get this adrenaline, and all it is a chemical in your bloodstream. Just a chemical. You pay to do that. You can do this for free. In fact, people will pay you to do it, and it's the same biochemistry. The difference is whether you want it or whether you want to get rid of it. In other words, it's just the way that you're thinking about it. One of the things we want to do is to help you to think of this as energy. It's just energy. It's just fuel for your body. Don't have the time today to go into the fight or flight response. You guys are familiar with it. And since we're talking about anxiety right now, I told you the folks in the front 3 rows we're going to get freebies. Those of you sitting in the front 3 rows, if you'll reach under your seats, you'll find a little piece of paper taped there. I have to stand up too, Meryl. That'll take you to a download that will go into more detail about this whole thing about communication anxiety, managing it, dealing with it. But the key is we don't want to get rid of it. Now that you guys are getting the handouts, we've got them coming across here, you'll see that these are kind of fill in the blank things. If this seems kind of 6th grade to you, I've seen presenters at seminars where people are paying the $3,000 a piece to attend, giving these kind of handouts because it helps you to remember detail. We're going to talk a little bit about how do you master the detail as a speaker. This is one of the ways. Okay, so let's go back and just kind of start filling this in and get caught up. He's got one of the masters. When you are talking to an audience, your information matters. That's what that first blank is. Your information matters. You guys have information that you're going to be getting to an audience. But that's not why we have speakers. We were talking a little while ago about context, about camaraderie. What do you as a speaker add to it that they couldn't get just by getting a handout, or for that matter, just by getting a video of you? Okay? They get you. You are mainly communicating you. That's the next one. You are what's added to the information. So if you're just not getting the handout, the first one there says when you're talking to an audience, your information matters. But the reason you're up there as a speaker, you are primarily communicating you. Okay? The second one, because we're still catching up here. It's not what happens to you, but do you know the first blank there?
Thoughts about it?
It's not what happens to you, but
How you react to it?
what it's sort of, you're very close. Yeah, the way I would phrase it is what you think about what happens to you. That determines your experience. Does that make sense to you? You've had the experience, haven't you, of having one of those dreams where you're falling, or you're up in front of the audience naked. By the way, that's why I don't ever advise people to imagine the audience naked. It's too easy for that to switch around. Okay? You wake up and it was all a dream. But you had the experience. It's the way you think about it. Number 3, stage fright is nothing more than energy. It's nothing more than energy. Caused by adrenaline. Yeah. Now you could fill in different words for these next two. What I had in mind is it's either a thrill or a fright. Pick your own words. It's either a thrill or a fright, a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you think about it. And now we're caught up on the handout. Here's another reason why we do things out loud. And some of you have already mentioned it, actually. You were talking about not just camaraderie, you were talking about, I think somebody actually used the word context. Now, I first became aware of this when I was in high school. I was blessed to have 2 different history teachers in high school. One of them was the stereotypical dates, wars, deaths, you know, just a list out loud. And it was obvious he came from a time when teachers did lectures because it saved paper, right? By the way, I've got some stuff like this to talk with your teachers about. I had another history teacher who assigned the textbook, gave us handouts, and most of the time he spent in class, he told stories. It wasn't just about telling the stories, although stories are a great technique for getting information across out loud. But rather the fact that by telling the stories, he gave us a context, which made all those dates and wars and people make sense. Okay? So, here's one of our handout things. Out loud is good for context. Context, absolutely. Handouts and print are good for the memorization. That ties into it. Because to memorize it, you first have to be able to handle the details. So handouts and print are really good for the details. They work together. Now, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the next one here. We've been talking about it, but I want to be sure you get this. Out loud, details help to create a context. Do you remember the name of the old dead Greek guy? Don't say it out loud. Just do you remember the name of the old dead Greek guy? Okay, raise your hand if you remember the old dead Greek guy's name. Okay, doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to me. I want to give credit where credit is due. But it doesn't really matter if you remember Epictetus' name. What matters is the detail helped to create an impression. I'm not just making this stuff up. And that was what was most important about that detail. So out loud, details help to create a context. And a context helps the details make sense. and helping them make sense makes them memorable. Okay? Now we've been talking about this energy thing. We don't want your energy just going all over the place. We want you to focus that energy. Every day there are megatons of energy. I don't know how you measure that kind of thing. Who's the physics folks in here? How do you measure energy? Gigawatts. All this energy that falls on our planet, all it takes is a lens to focus it. And you've got tremendous power. You are the lens. What you bring is the lens. Now, they're not going to remember the details. That's what the handouts and the web pages and the printouts are for. And if you can't see, these folks are getting handouts. Not handouts like standing on the forum. They will remember the impression that you create with your details. They will be engaged by the details. They will remember the context, the impression, and what details they remember because of what you bring to them. They're just tools, though. We're going to talk a little bit here about the tools involved in getting up in front of a group. I'm using one right now. People are scared of microphones. This is just a tool. That's all it is. Anybody here scared of a screwdriver? Okay. I used to be. Because I saw my dad working on something and it slipped and he cut himself really bad when I was a little kid. But once I learned how to use the tool, I realized it's just a tool. There's nothing to be afraid of as long as you learn how to use it. We have with us an expert on microphones as well as other things. I'd like to introduce to you Trent Clegg, who's going to tell you some stuff about how to effectively use 3 different kinds of microphones, right? So Trent, come on up.
My name is Trent, and by the way, isn't Don great? Give Don a hand. He is just a great. I've enjoyed this. But my name is Trent, and I manage the Performing Arts Center over in the Alexander Building, and I've been here 10 years. So I've been around sound stuff. We have sound stuff all over in the Performing Arts Center, and we have sound stuff here. So I'm usually the guy in the back, but I also have done a lot of stuff on stage too. Actually, I was got to MC the balloon rally when we were here to the 10,000 people. You talk about being nervous. That's the largest crowd I've ever had to be in. But Pat Myers said, "Trent, what do you think about introducing our sponsors and stuff?" I'm like, "Pat, are you sure you want me?" I was like, "Certainly there's somebody else like a Don King who's a..." But anyway, but there's several different kinds of microphones and ways to use that, and I appreciate all of Don's remarks of being confident in front of people and on the stage. But one thing about using these tools is to not be afraid of them, because they are there to help you. And the first thing we want to address is when one is available, always use a microphone for the sake of the audience. For the sake of the audience. And it's amazing how, and I'm a loud guy, as you can see. I have a good set of lungs, my mom always told me. But it's always good to use a mic when you're in like the Performing Arts Center, even here in the Goins, when you're here working with other students, because there may be some that are really hard of hearing, you just don't know. So it's just always good to grab a microphone and just use it, whatever they've got available. You know, here we've got some different kinds. Let's segue into our next one. On your next point, it says a microphone only picks up sound and its angle of acceptance. Well, there's different pickup patterns or angles of acceptance to these microphones. And you'll see I grabbed this lapel real quick just to show you. This one has, I should have read up on what the pickup patterns are, but they have cardioid, supercardioid. I don't want to throw a lot of tech jargon at you, but there's different types of pickup. And this one, you talk into it, and I can talk over here and it picks up, and I can talk over here and it picks up. And you can see it picks up fairly well, so it's got a kind of a bubble around it, and that's good. But one good thing about this type of microphone is, of course, I have whatever this button's, I guess, that attaches to with my shirt, and so it stays in the middle. But a lot of times there'll be ladies and they have a big lapel on a blouse, and it'll get put over here. When I talk over here, it doesn't pick you up as well, but when I talk over here, it does. And a lot of times that can cause a lot of problems. So the center, the more center you keep a lapel or a lavalier, the better. And you can see it did pick me up a little bit, but just not as well. Of course, the closer you get, sometimes you get. And a good rule of thumb that we've always done is it's just from your chin down. It kind of is a good place to go for just kind of I guess what's the old hang loose thing, but kind of put it on your chest there. But and don't be afraid to speak up, and you don't want to get it too close either, because you just sound really throaty, and it just sounds really just yucky. But you can move it up and down and do different things with that. So and these have their place. Typically, you don't sing with these. When you see a vocalist on stage, they don't sing with these because this big pickup pattern. A lot of vocalists like to have a monitor in front of them so they can hear themselves, and it can tend to cause feedback and problems. And in here, if some of you may end up presenting in here, you'll see these house speakers are a little bit more towards the house than the stage. And so I have kind of a safe zone right here. I can walk all over and have a safe zone. But if I was to take this, I'm not going to do it, or Scott will throw something at me. But if I was to keep walking, and eventually I'm going to get to a point where it's going to start feeding back, and I'm not going to make it do that. But you just always got to be conscientious of things around you. And again, these are just tools to help you to present and convey your message. But that's an angle of acceptance, or a pickup pattern is here. I'll switch over to, this is a dynamic mic. This is it's a Shure. But it has a pickup that's right here. But you'll notice it doesn't pick up so much right here. Whereas, Scott's loving me for this, but whereas it picks up on the side, you see the cone that's around it? Here it's not so much. The pickup is right in the middle. And what's really good about these, I don't want to phase them out here. What's really good about these type of mics is that there a lot of vocalists like these kind, because you can put a monitor in front of them, and it doesn't feed back as much, so they can get a lot of gain out of a mic like this, and you got a lot more control because it's only picking up what's going right in front of it. So you can see there's just some different pickup patterns, and if you go to speak in a place, excuse me, if you go to speak into a place like this, you might want to get there a little early, an hour early, to just kind of see and check out, okay, what am I going to be talking into? What kind of mic am I going to be using that will help me to effectively get my message across? Because ultimately, we all want to look good when we're in front of a crowd. We want to look professional. So just go early and just make sure you know what you're dealing with. And I'm going to switch over to this mic. This is a podium mic, and this has this is a really nice mic. I think this mic was probably like $1,000. I mean, they're not cheap. But you can see it's got a pickup all the way down to here. Check, 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 check. And you can see it's just this big sphere. And so these kind of mics, these are really nice for when you have two people side by side. You've seen us maybe in the Clayton Performing Arts Center. We have like an award ceremony and two people are presenting. We use these type of mics to do that because they pick up really, really, really well. So and they have a lot of low end response, and it sounds good. But just different kinds of mics and other little tips to help you that the sound man doesn't come down and throw something at you, which I've never thrown anything, but I've seen some that would. And I wanted to, don't get me wrong. But don't ever cover a microphone. So a lot of times you'll be presenting and you'll be like, hey, you know, thanks for coming to this. And they'll do this number. Well, I'm not going to do this too much, but covering a microphone like this is the worst thing you can do. Never put your hand on top of a microphone. If there would have been monitors here, which this room's a little safer, but if there would have been monitors here, there's a lot of times you put it over it and all of a sudden it'll start with a real slow feedback and start, because what you're doing is you're creating a cone and you're amplifying that monitor going right back into it. So just never tap on it. Usually, unless the sound man's totally not paying attention, which we're usually cover you pretty good here at Pellissippi. Just kind of make eye contact with a sound guy and just kind of give them some time to maybe reach up and hit that button. But don't ever tap it, blow on it. This ain't on, you know. It's just kind of use courtesy too with a sound guy. But let's not cover, tap, or blow into the microphone. And one other good tip, and I'll get off the stage here, is a lot of times we get into a situation with a microphone where you kind of hear some feedback, and you kind of hear just some resonance, and a lot of times there may be a sound man, he's trying to figure out, there may be some change in the atmosphere around him, and it'll be a change of different frequencies and stuff in the room, but it's always good to get closer to the microphone and turn it away from the sound output. So, like I was saying earlier, this speaker is an output, and this is an output, this is an input. So if I move this closer, it's going to start feeding back. So you got to kind of be aware where the speakers are around you. Just make sure you don't get too close to them, and kind of really watch the sound guy, and just be respectful of the equipment. Kind of learn, and it's kind of common sense, but just learn that, hey, if I put this in here, it's going to start feeding back. So just be careful where you're at on stage, and if you feel like you may not be loud enough, you can control your gain by getting a little closer. But you don't want to be eating the mic either. There's a good happy medium. I think Dawn has suggested maybe even a little kind of a fist like this. You don't want to eat too much. There's times where I've had to eat it when we were out on the balloon rally, and there was 10,000 people, and I needed all the gain I could get, and had these huge speakers, and hey, welcome to Pellissippi State. But in general, you want to have a good general distance from your mouth. But if you're down here, a lot of times you're down here talking, my belly button doesn't make a whole lot of noise except when I'm hungry. But you want to try to move your mic up, because if it's down here, the sound man's having to really crank you up, and it just gives more area for this to feed back, and you start hearing feedback. Put the mic closer to your sound source, and that will help you. So we talked about a lapel or a lavalier. We talked about this is a handheld wireless, and then we have this podium mic. So they all have different types of sounds, different type of pickups. But I wanted to show you one other neat little microphone that you might start seeing around if you work in here or the Performing Arts Center. But this is called a Countryman, and this is really, really cool, especially for the ladies. I told you a little earlier, when you use these lapels, sometimes you have a lady has a blouse, and it's, you don't really have a tight way to do this, and it's up and they talking. This goes around your ear, and you can creatively put this on here, and it's flesh tone, so it doesn't stick out so much. But if I turn this way and I turn this way, it stays with my mouth. So it's pretty cool. So we're starting to use these more and more around here. These are not cheap either, so these are about $300 each. And that's just the microphone, not the bell pack. So also just respect these, because they're very expensive. Try not to drop them or throw them, even though you get angry or afraid. But mics are a very powerful tool to help you deliver your message, and don't be afraid of them. Trust the sound man, and you will have a very successful time. So we'll give it back to Don.
One other thing I've learned as a speaker, you'll see people that will get scared of the microphone because they get a little too close to it, or it's right in front of it, and they're popping into it. Did you notice that Trent and then me, as I've been handling it, the microphone's down below where the air goes. People who aren't familiar with it think you have to talk into it, and then I'm not going to do it, Scott. But that Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers thing, that can ruin a microphone. It can also scare a speaker. You'll see people do that when they back off from it. When you back off, you're a little more likely to get feedback. So you can get a really nasty, vicious circle going there. So just hold it pointing at your mouth and talk across it. Make sense? I read online the advice for a vocalist is to either put it right up against your lips or be this distance. Either of those keeps it from popping. I don't like touching the thing with my mouth, because then I think about how many other people did that. Radio station where I worked, one of our DJs would come in every morning and spray Lysol into the microphone. Microphone lasted about 6 months. $300. No, don't want to do that. Okay, we have some other things to talk about to help us along with this. One of these things is, and let me get my control back here, stage presence. You don't have to be like this guy. Just curious, how many of you recognize this guy? Okay, for those of you who don't recognize him, this is Tony Robbins. You've probably heard his name, Anthony Robbins. He has been speaking professionally since he was 16 years old. He's close to my age. Nobody's going to ask. Mid-70s, college, you do the math. Okay, Tony's been around for a while, and he has certainly worked out this thing about stage presence. But there are things we can learn from him. One of the things, for you in particular, whether you're on an actual stage in front of a group like I am right now, in a classroom with 10 people, you are on from the moment they become aware of you as a speaker. And yes, that is one of your handout things. You are on from the time the audience is aware of you. What does that mean? That means, in practical terms, if you're not the first speaker, you're part of, let's say, a panel. There are 2 other speakers ahead of you. You're sitting up here on the stage waiting your turn. Don't be checking your messages. Don't be talking to the person next to you. Don't be staring off into space. Listen to the other speakers. It's courtesy for one thing. For another, it's just part of the communication thing. All of you are working to get a message across. Help that other speaker. I have been following this today knowing that some of you know me already, and those of you who don't, you might have pointed me out as I came in. I made sure I had the tie on and all that kind of stuff before I came in for the cafeteria. Now, many of you have seen me in my, what would we call it, dude stage? Like the guy from The Big Lebowski. Okay, you're not thinking of me as a speaker at that point. It also goes on the other side. When you're done speaking, and folks, I see this in speech class more than anything. Students will do just a dynamic job with the speech, and when they finish, on their way to the seat, they go, I'm so glad that's over. And it can just destroy the whole effect. It's all part of the communication situation. So maintain that presence. Now, part of keeping the stage presence is keeping your energy focused. That can mean a lot of things. We don't have the time to go into a lot of detail today. I'll just give you one example. People worry about talking with their hands too much. I would say you're better off using your hands the way that you do in conversation than keeping them stuck in your pocket. But as you develop skill at this, awareness, the best thing you can do with your hands when you're not using them on purpose, just let them hang there. People ask me, what do I do with my hands? I said, what do you normally do with your hands when you're conversing? They say, I don't know. I don't pay attention to them. Now I'm up in front of the audience, they feel like canned hams out here at the end of my arms. I understand that. But as you watch somebody like Tony Robbins, and if you haven't seen him, I would say go to the internet, look on YouTube, find some of his. You will see him using his hands and his body movement deliberately. You have to be bigger on stage because they can't see the subtle stuff out there. Don't worry too much about this, just start noticing it. TED Talks and stuff like that, they're just such a great resource to be able to see people who are not professional speakers. They're just passionate about what they talk about. And you can learn a lot from watching those folks. Here's another thing about stage presence. One of the reasons that, as Becky and I talked, she was first saying, I'm not going to introduce you, just go up there and talk. And I was okay with that. But Becky's in Toastmasters, and I'm sure she got to thinking about, okay, there's a reason why we do that introduction stuff in Toastmasters. And she came up to me and she said, would you like me to introduce you? I said, yeah, let's do a quick one for the service of the audience, because what that enables the speaker to do is to get right into the message. So the next thing here is don't waste time getting ready to talk. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Becky. Welcome to the training for NSO leaders. You guys know why you're here, don't you? Speakers spend time getting ready to talk. Again, we don't have the time today, but if you will go to YouTube, look for a guy named Darren LaCroix. The last name is L-A-C-R-O-I-X. Darren LaCroix. And look for his winning speech. He's the 2001 International World Champion of Public Speaking. Watch how he starts. He's just right into it. Today, I started right with the story and tried to put you in that place with me all those years ago. And Becky helped me to do that because she got me started. I didn't have to spend time getting ready to talk. Even if you don't have somebody to introduce you, you need to do that same thing somehow. Now, there's a technical thing here that a lot of the folks who are doing NSO stuff are going to be doing. They're going to be introducing other people. Did I have that right, Becky?
Yes,
okay.
all the time.
I'm going to pick on Marilyn. She said, don't make me do anything here. But I not only appreciate you sitting up front, but I know that you can handle this sort of thing. Would you mind being a volunteer? Thank you very much, Marilyn. Yeah, just come on up here. What's going to happen here, folks, is we're going to pretend that there's a lectern right here. Okay, so I'm standing here. She's going to be the next speaker. Okay, yeah, there you go. And I'm introducing her. Okay, first I'm going to illustrate how not to do it. It's what we typically will do in bringing the speaker up. Okay, remember the lectern's right here. Okay, folks, I would like to welcome our next speaker, Marilyn Harper. Marilyn? Okay. Okay. I'm exaggerating. Let me do it the right way before you go away. I'm exaggerating, but you see what's going on there, right? Have you ever run into that where you just didn't quite know what to do as the next step? A very simple way to keep track of this. And did we put it this way in the handout? Yeah. Introduce, then get out of the way. If you think about the next speaker, thank you so much, Marilyn, for doing this. I'm not quite ready yet. She's the next speaker. She needs access to the lectern, to the microphone. And for these purposes, let's assume that there's a mic on the lectern. Okay? So what I'm going to want to do is to welcome her, shake her hand, and get her to the lectern as soon as possible. That means I step behind her. She goes to the lectern. It's a simple thing, but it avoids so much uncertainty. And you don't want to do that to a speaker. You don't want to do that to yourself. So it's going to be more like something like this. Here's the lectern. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome our next speaker, Marilyn Harper. Give her a hand. Now, I exaggerated that. Did you see where I pulled her? I'm shaking hands with her anyway. It's almost like dancing, yeah. I'm shaking hands with her anyway. If I am being good as an introducer, I'm going to tell her we'll do that. But if I forget, all I have to do to signal to her which way I'm going is with this handshake, just pull a little bit, and it's taken care of.
What if you pull too hard and she falls forward?
Don't do that. Yeah.
She may not be expecting you to guide her if she wasn't ready.
That's and you have to be aware. Thanks, Marilyn. Yeah, appreciate that. You have to be aware of your own body language. You're right. If you haven't talked to them ahead of time, you got to be just a little bit ahead. You know, you're shaking hands. You're not pulling hard. It's a subtle thing. They may not even be aware that you have done it. But it's a signal along with what you're doing with your head. You're turning this way. The speaker knows which way you're going, whether you talk about it or not. Good point. Okay, so introduce and get out of the way. We also want to talk about something that causes people problem. That's this eye contact thing. People worry about eye contact. How many of you have had a speech class already? Okay, most of you. Some of you, it's been a while, okay? You talked about eye contact there, right? Why do you make eye contact with the audience? Okay, you have to hold their attention?
I was just going to say, make sure they're paying attention to what you're saying and see again.
Okay, yeah, and one of the ways is so that you can see what they're thinking. Is it sinking in? That's absolutely right. Are they getting it? Okay, what else?
You're measuring reactions, so you know if they're not, I need to reemphasize what I was saying because you didn't get it the first time.
Okay, okay, that's absolutely, that's another part of this same thing. What I think of it as is you're having a conversation. Does that fit in with what you were going to say?
You want to pull them in. You
Pull
want to
them
bring
in,
them to
yeah.
you.
You're just having a conversation up here. If I could do anything in my speech classes to help my students, it would be to get away from even using the term speech. Because we all have this baggage in our minds associated with that word, what it means. We tend to think of politicians on TV. Or we think of great orators like Winston Churchill, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Excellent people to study. You can learn a lot from them, but if that's what we're thinking, that's so intimidating for most of us. We can't really make much use of that. Yes, ma'am?
You were talking about Tony Robbins earlier. One of the things that makes him the most effective is that he can stand in front of an audience of multiple thousands of people.
20,000.
And every single one of them feels like he's talking directly to them.
Exactly.
The great orators are a different thing. They're moving and inspiring, and people cry when they hear them, but they don't necessarily feel like Winston Churchill was talking directly to them. Almost everybody who comes out of a Tony Robbins lecture feels that way.
Exactly, exactly. In fact, when most of us think speech, what we think is a performance. We're not doing a performance. We're having a planned conversation. So as we're talking about eye contact, the next reason for making it is it's the number one thing for reducing stage fright. The number one thing for reducing stage fright is eye contact, real eye contact. That's the emphasis there, real eye contact. As you look out at the audience, you are looking at actual people and making that connection. One of the reasons that these first 3 rows were so important, you can have a conversation with these people. The rest of them can eavesdrop if they want to. Even though I can't see most of you back there, I don't have my glasses on. It still feels like we're having a conversation because I'm having a conversation with the folks that I can see. So it's a stage fright thing. Now people think it's the opposite. They'll try not to look at the audience because then you don't know what they're thinking. You don't know how you're coming across. You don't know what they're missing. That makes you more nervous. So you get in that vicious cycle thing. Just stop it. When you look at somebody in the audience and make real eye contact, the audience disappears. You don't have an audience anymore. You have a collection of individuals. And individuals aren't scary. Have a conversation with a series of individuals. Now you hold that eye contact for right around 5 or 6 seconds, but don't get mechanical about that. That's just a guideline. That's about how long it takes to register as actual contact. Have a conversation with a series of individuals. Now here's one that's very important. Do not, under any circumstances, read PowerPoint slides to an audience. Now, why are you laughing? How often do you see that one? Yes, ma'am? Oh, her eyes are just bugging out there.
I've spent a semester with that.
Yeah, you know. And see, I hesitate to mention that because first thing you start thinking of is, it might have happened this morning for all I know. You know, I'm not saying this to criticize people. There's nothing wrong with PowerPoint itself, but the default in PowerPoint is to make bullet lists. And because that's the first thing that's presented to you when you're trying to put one of these things together, that's what people fall into. We've all heard of death by PowerPoint. For the most part, it's just simply one of these tool things. We don't know how to use the tool. How much text have you seen on my slides? Not much. There's a theory that goes back into the 1980s called cognitive load theory that basically says people cannot read and listen at the same time. It's more complex than that, but that's the way to boil it down. So when you're presented with a text full of slides, people are a slide full of text. You will either listen to the speaker or you will read what's on the screen. But you can't do both. And if, dear God, the speaker just stands there and reads the slide to you, this flies in the face of what we started out with, doesn't it? Why are you there? It's not for the information. Yes, the information matters, but you're primarily communicating yourself. So if you've got to put text on a slide for some reason, just a few words at a time. Seth Godin says no more than 6 words on a slide, ever, period. Now, I'm going to tell you like I used to tell folks, those of you who don't know, I spent 10 years as a minister. People use ministers as cheap psychologists, you know. I remember a couple who was in my office once, and they both had Bibles. They're both quoting Ephesians 5. The husband is reading the stuff that the wife is supposed to do. The wife is reading the stuff that the husband's supposed to do. I was having a bad day that day. And I said, wait a minute, I see what the problem is. Y'all got your Bibles switched. And they went, I hadn't thought of it that way. I wish I could tell you that I saved that marriage. I think there were more problems going on than just having Bible switched, okay? But they got the point, okay? And I want to make that same point with you about PowerPoint. This is not a tool for you to look at other speakers and criticize what they're doing. This is something for you to make you a more effective communicator. Okay? Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? We want to talk about voice a little bit here. Use of the voice. That's scary, isn't it? A little bit. There's a lot we could say about voice. We're running short of time, so I'm going to kind of go through this fairly quickly, realizing that you can go to my website and you can find out more stuff about this sort of thing. Number one, do not read to them. Does this sound similar to what we just got through with? Yeah, this is for voice reasons now, but you remember 5th grade having to memorize those poems? Standing in front of the audience, instead of in front of the class, you're reciting that poem. The boys stood on the burning deck, the flames they burned his feet like heck, or however that thing went. Okay? You don't remember that one? Don't you hate it when people read to you? Without training as an actor, it's just, oh man, the only reason to read to people is the same reason your mama read to you when you were 4 years old. Why did she read to you when you were 4 years old? Teach you to read, yeah, but why else?
Put you to sleep.
Put you to sleep. Absolutely. Don't read to them. Now, if you're trained as an actor, there's such a thing as reader's theater. That is a hard skill to develop, folks. You can do it, but most of us, we don't need to do that. If for no other reason, then you're going to put them to sleep. They're not going to remember the detail from your talking anyway. That's what the handout's for. Okay? Pause for audience reflection. Stop talking every once in a while. Let it sink in. You might have noticed about every 10 minutes we have some kind of physical activity for you guys. That's a special kind of pause. We keep talking about TED Talks, but one of the reasons they're so successful is because they're 20 minutes long. Okay, we got 55-minute classes. We can't do anything about that, but as speakers in a classroom, as teachers, we know to change up something every 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. And some of you are cringing because you know people who don't know that. We're trying to change that. The other side, by the way, of communication, being in an audience, if you're listening to somebody who's not very effective at what they're doing and you want to know what they know, you've got to take 100% responsibility for getting it. Because who suffers if you don't? I get paid the same. I'll take time to tell a story from my college days. I went to a small church-based private college, so there were no mandatory retirement ages. We had a professor who was 80 years old at the time. He was nearly blind, he was hard of hearing, he was a world-class expert in the book of Acts. And I sat in his classroom for about 10 minutes every day. He would call the roll, and he was old school, man. We had chalkboards still. He would call the roll, he'd turn around and write the verse of the day on the board, and while he was doing that, everybody not in the front row would go out the window in the back of the classroom. And I made a B in that class because I knew how to read the textbook, I knew how to play the academic game, knew how to take tests. But folks, I can't tell you how much I have kicked myself because I missed out on the opportunity to plumb a mind that is just not available to me anymore. Now, he wasn't a good speaker. There's no getting around it. But he knew stuff. And I missed out. Now, you don't want to do that to your audiences. We're talking about you as speakers, but you're also students. So, let's get that part taken care of also. Do not under any circumstances read PowerPoint slides to them. Yeah, there it is again. Is this redundant? No, because this is now about the use of the voice. If reading to them is anathema, reading the PowerPoint slides is killer. Don't do that. Now, let's switch things here just a bit. Remember stage fright? Talked about stage fright a bit? Okay. Remember that stage fright is just adrenaline. We're going to go further though. If it's just adrenaline, we don't want to try to get rid of it. We've got the butterflies, okay? Yeah. But we don't want to get rid of the adrenaline because it's energy. What we want to do is to harness it. Yeah, boy, who harness the wind, you will be the people who harness the adrenaline. We want to ride that sucker like a cheap pony. It's there for your use. We want to get the butterflies to fly in formation. So don't think of it as something to get rid of. Think of it as something to use. We're going to wrap up here, folks, with thinking about something that all of you have had since you were 2 years old. And I'm not talking about talking now. We're talking about that which goes along with talking. Why we do this out loud. I was never a fan of his politics, but I've always recognized that Bill Clinton is one of the best communicators to come along in the last 50 years. I read a commentator who said that the main reason for that was because he had the ability to flirt like a baby. You see the reaction you get? Bill Clinton has that same ability. I worked in Arkansas media when he was governor of Arkansas. I didn't get to cover any of his press conferences directly, but I talked to lots of colleagues who did. And they all said the same thing. When he talked with you, it was like you and he were the only people in the room. And you were the most important and fascinating person on earth. When we're talking about flirting, folks, we're not talking about sexual stuff. And yeah, I know all about the dress. Okay? We're talking about that charisma. We're talking about the ability to connect. And it's the same ability that this little guy right here has. By the way, I don't think that hairy leg right there is his. Okay? Your presence gives power to the message. Now, the best way for you to cultivate this, and here is just a quick commercial, take advantage of something like Toastmasters. You've already had your speech classes. Great. Use it or lose it. This is the cheapest, And the most effective way for you to continue developing those abilities. Darren LaCroix, whom I mentioned a moment ago, people in the National Speakers Association don't discuss their fees. Federal Trade Commission rules prohibit it. But I understand that he gets up to $20,000 for a day-long seminar. He belongs to Toastmasters still, because he says it's the best way for him to continue to develop his skills. I don't care if you join the club that's here on this campus. There are 12 other clubs in the Knoxville Oak Ridge area. One of them is going to match your schedule. I highly recommend that you take advantage of this. As we wrap up today, I just want to remind you once again that you and your presence gives power to your message. Use the power wisely. And use your power of your presence to make a difference in your world. Those of you in NSO, there's going to be students that are coming in here scared to death. They're crossing a threshold. You've already crossed it. You can be their guide. You can make a difference in people's lives with this power. It's not fear, it's energy. Put it to use. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I will stay around for questions, but I know a lot of you have to get back to work, so I will turn the microphone back over to Becky Meyer. Thank you very much.